terms of address are terribly important, and in lots of cultures in Asia, for example in Japanese, there are over 20 ways of saying I or we, depending on how formal you want to be, how high you think you are in relation to the other person, how low the other person is in relation to you, and whether you're being respectful or not respectful. And choosing the right one, it's also different by gender, by the way. There's one, boku, used by males only, as a rule, and this sounds a little bit more refined than some of the others, which are downright rude. So you've got to be pretty much expert in how you address people. In Australia, it's a lot easier because we have moved away from titles an awful lot. Now, there are things called honorifics, and an honorific is where you use a title like doctor or professor for people in universities, your grace, your holiness, or reverend for religious folks, your excellency for the governor, the honourable for judges, doctors and captains, and in royalty, your highness. And you can have multiple, the Reverend Dr. Jones and so on.
Well, Professor, to that point, you are a professor. You're one of the smartest people I know. You're incredibly qualified. You're really super duper impressive. And yet you prefer not to be professor. You prefer to just be Roly. Why is that?
I'm Australian. And in this country, we really are not so much into titles anymore. We used to be. And I can remember one occasion I was observing a couple of ladies who were in their 80s. They'd known each other for 60-something years. They still called each other Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Smith. In other words, getting to the first name thing hadn't yet happened in their long, long lives. So in Australia, we do tend to want not only the person's first name, I don't call you Catherine, I call you Cat, because we've reached that level of kind of collaboration where you'd use the friendly one. And this is terribly important because you've got to use address forms in lots of ways. First of all, if you're trying to get someone's attention, hey, you with the silly hat, you can get yourself into trouble with this sort of thing. And then there are various politeness ones, like in French there's the TV thing where you would say tu, meaning you, to someone you know well or who's close family, or your partner say, but you would say vous to everybody else. And the impolite one is, and the point at which you go from the formal one to the less formal one, when particularly talking to a person of the other sex, is really tricky. If you get it wrong, you can be put back months. I know because I've done it. But again, you've got to get these things right. Sir and madam, the police will normally say sir or madam to you if you are being talked to. And there are some cultures where there are terms which do for everything. Under communism in Russia, tavarish, which means comrade, did for everybody.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that we were talking to the top or the bottom of the social scale, male or female, old or young, qualified or unqualified, they were all tavarish.
I mean, given that there are many different ways that people can identify, and it mightn't be as a sir or a madam, it could be something else entirely. Yeah. Maybe there's a lot of space for those kinds of do-all terms in 2020, Roly.
I think there are, but where there are certain social roles which you really need to respect. So the governor is Your Excellency. If I write a letter to the governor, I say Your Excellency. Even though I knew him before he became governor, and I don't then call him by his first name. But when you are talking to a person in an office, then you respect the office by using it.
Yes.
Now, the normal ones are Mr. and Ms. We've given up Miss and Mrs., except Mrs. not entirely. I have some colleagues at the university who are female and married. They aren't doctors or professors, and they specifically ask to be called Mrs. So I need to have a note in my address book that this is someone, because you should pay the person the respect by addressing them the way they want to be addressed.